lifetime do we get a chance to hear a man of great intelligence, wit, and wisdom. Unfortunately, that man could not be with us tonight. Instead, we have Bob Mager. There are many things I could share with you about Bob. For example, many people have accused Bob of being a ham, but that's not true. Hams can be cured. This evening, I'd like to mention only a few of the characteristics and accomplishments that make Bob so unique and so uniquely respected. Bob is a consummate professional. By this, I mean that he truly practices what he teaches. Just a few examples. In his books and workshops, Bob suggests, insists, that you should know what you're trying to do before you start doing it. That is, that you should define your objectives. In his words, if you're not sure where you're going, you're liable to end up someplace else. Another of Bob's sayings is this: people learn to avoid the things they're hit with. If learning, for example, isn't perceived as a positive, reinforcing event, learners will seek to avoid it. Bob is passionate about his desire to see students treated more humanely, and this passion manifests itself in all of his work. You see it in the friendly, humorous, approachable style he uses in his books and workshops. That, and his insistence on pre-publication tryouts, explains why Bob's books get read and read by the borrower and borrowed by somebody else. Many people buy Bob's books because someone walked away with their copies and they didn't want to be without. That's a huge compliment to the value that professionals find in his work. Like most professionals, Bob is multidimensional. His interests range far and wide. For example, his love of learning has led him to take a variety of correspondence courses, as a result of which he became a certified locksmith and an award-winning ventriloquist. And I just learned from a reliable source that he once took a correspondence course to become a private detective. He has played the banjo in a banjo band and taught himself to ride the unicycle, for starters. Somehow he's found the time to write 10 books, 2 with co-authors. They have been translated into 16 languages, and over 3.5 million copies have been sold worldwide. Bob is a past president and life member of ISPI and was one of the first inductees into the HRD Hall of Fame. He received ASTD's award for Distinguished Contribution to Human Resource Development and ISPI's Distinguished Professional Achievement Award. A few years ago, Training Magazine did a survey of its readers. They asked, if you were the first training director on the moon and you could have the phone number of only one person on Earth to call for help, whose number would you want? The overwhelming choice was Bob Mager's. Because I have been associated with Bob for many years, I hear reports frequently about the impact he's made on people in our field. And the most frequent comment I hear is, Mager changed my life. I have the privilege of presenting to you an individual who has significantly changed my professional life, my friend, Bob Mager.
Yeah, I know what's coming. And you don't. And Ann Parkman is sweating bullets. She doesn't know either. Well, every conference has a beginning and an end, a front and a back. Or, to use a train analogy, an engine and a caboose. As far as this conference is concerned, I'm the caboose. Well, I want to begin by thanking Ann for that marvelous introduction. You know, of all the introductions I've ever received, I have to tell you that that one is certainly by far the most recent. I just can't believe that terrific introduction, and I'm sure many of you can't either. Obviously, she has me confused with somebody else. I don't know. Whenever I get an introduction like that, I'm tempted to respond with a four-letter word. True. But when that introduction started out, I wasn't sure whether I was going to end up 10 feet tall or 6 feet under. I was sitting there thinking, now there's an introduction that any masochist would just have to love. But never mind. I owe Anne a tremendous debt of gratitude, not only for the invitation to be here this evening, but also for the introduction, that generous introduction. Actually, we all owe her a debt of gratitude. After all, now go ahead. Don't do that. After all, keeping this crowd in line for an entire year has got to be like being Roseanne's masseur. You've really got your hands full. And yet, as hard as she works, and she does work extremely hard, she still doesn't have ulcers. But she's a carrier. Seriousness aside, it seems fitting that the society should invite their only 2,000-year-old member to deliver the very last banquet speech of the entire century. So I thought the least I could do is deliver the perfect banquet speech, which is exactly what I intend to do. Before I do that, however, I feel that you're entitled to know a little bit about the history of this speech. When I delivered the banquet speech back in 1984, I offered this society a number of profound proposals. Looking back, I note that absolutely none of them was ever acknowledged or implemented. And since my efforts made not a ripple on the fabric of human performance technology, they invited me back. Have they learned nothing? Actually, I don't understand why that talk didn't work better than it did. After all, I applied our own technology to its development. Before doing anything else, I did a careful analysis of the banquet environment and of the target population. The environment description was simple enough. A large, noisy, crowded room where the clatter of dishes provides a staccato accent to the babble of voices. You write analyses with words like that? The room is poorly lit, with people spread over a wide area. So I had to conclude that whatever else it might be good for, the banquet environment was certainly inappropriate for a speech. The target population description was equally revealing. Here they are, I wrote in my analysis, a scraggly-looking group attending an event at the last gasp of the conference. Mentally, they're tired, worn out, frazzled, and a little tipsy. Physically, they're tired, worn out, frazzled, and a little tipsy. They're having a good time talking to one another. And what they want is more of the same. What they're going to get, I got to watch my gestures, is a banquet speech. So in reviewing my target population description, I could only conclude that whatever the audience wanted or needed, it certainly wasn't a banquet speech. After all, we all know that the origin of the expression BS is All together now. Banquet speech. I've got some fast learners here. But even though a banquet speech doesn't fit either the target population or the environment, regardless of the absence of the need, I knew I'd have to prepare one anyway. After all, why let good sense stand in tradition? But if I had to prepare a speech mainly to satisfy tradition, that meant finding a topic. And as many of you know, that's never easy. So I decided to begin my hunt for a topic by reviewing some of the successful ISPI banquet speeches of the past. And I was quickly reminded that I'm not the only one who has trouble finding a topic. For example, I remembered a memorable talk given by a lovable fellow who was so desperate for a topic that he stood up here and talked about his dog. He even showed slides. He told us about how, for example, after teaching his dog the theory of rolling over, he modeled the correct behavior. And then he provided supervised practice, he told us. All the while using ISPI-approved motivational techniques. I thought, that's it. A dog act is always a winner. But I quickly rejected that topic when I remembered that I don't have a dog. Then I remembered another terrific talk where the speaker, with tears in his eyes, stood here and talked about his little boy. Now there's a winning topic, I thought. Talk about children and you can't lose. But I have to give that idea up as well. You see, I don't have a little boy of my own anymore. And these days, if you talk lovingly about somebody else's little boy, then there was the great banquet speaker who had so much trouble finding a topic that in desperation he stood up here and read us a letter from his mama. Another famous banquet speaker was so frantic for a topic that he walked around the stage doing magic tricks. The puzzling thing about that is they keep inviting him back, and he doesn't even speak English. Yet another of our luminaries suddenly appeared on stage in a cloud of smoke and fire wearing a wizard costume. I remember that wizard costume, and I was dazzled by the smoke and the fire to the point where I'm not sure what came after that. I'll tell you, about then, I was feeling a little slap-happy and a little mischievous. And I thought, you know, I've got all these old slides of ISPI members in various compromising positions. Maybe if I show a few of those, nobody will notice the absence of a topic. But I rejected that idea as well. Hey, I've got to save all these salacious slides for when I do my ISPI expose. At that point, I thought I might find my topic if I reviewed some of the brilliant proposals that I offered the Society during my last banquet speech. You may recall that those proposals were stimulated by the realization that in spite of our efforts, in spite of our many, many, many successes, we were and are still largely invisible to the world at large. If you doubt that, ask yourself, how many of you have appeared on 2020? Or on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno? How many movies have you seen whose hero or heroine was a human performance technology? How many of you have been honored for your HPT expertise by the National Education Association? And it seemed to me that this invisibility was due in part to the fact that we didn't have the symbols, the visible manifestations that tell people that we're special, that we have something of value to offer. We're invisible because we don't have the class, the style that generates distinction. So I proposed, among other things, that we might adopt at least some classy slogans, or maybe a flag, or an ISPI alma mater, or even a special uniform, so that when you walk down the street, people could exclaim, "Look, there goes Captain Developer." I even proposed that we create and wear medals to display our distinction. But alas, it's no longer politically correct to be more competent, to appear to be more competent or more intelligent or more industrious than our neighbors. As we've seen time and time again, the crusade for dumbing down has been far more successful than the crusade for smartening up. Then, recognizing that throughout all of history, the most distinctive item of recognition has been the headgear, I suggested that for instant recognition, we needed a hat. When I wondered what a distinctive hat for a performance technologist might look like, it was obvious, as Tom Gilbert has told us time and again, that since the essence of our technology is performance engineering, the performance technology hat is the hard hat. Now, everybody wears one of these. This is too common. So I asked myself, what makes a hat truly distinctive? Why, gold braid. Where would admirals and generals be without gold braid? So I said, that's it. And I proposed that the performance technology hat is hard hat and gold braid. And you know, I've been walking around this conference for 3 whole days, and I haven't seen a single person wearing this official HPT hat. No wonder you're all invisible. But have any of these terrific proposals been accepted? No, not a one. So having failed at my crusade to put the society on the map big time, they invited me back. When I asked our president what she wanted me to do, she said, well, do something entertaining, but with a serious message. And be sure to give it an international flavor. Oh, and inspire them to march eagerly forth into the next century. Well, that was a lot of help. But it did give me an idea. As you already know, and as you've heard throughout this conference, you're going to have to become much more self-reliant in the coming decades. That means you're going to have to learn to apply a wider range of skills. In short, you're going to have to take firmer control of your own lives, starting with your own personal health, of course, because without health... So I thought, I can help the banquet crowd get started on that road to the 21st century by putting them on the road to better health. So I decided to have everybody stand up so I could lead them in some calisthenics. And very quickly, it became clear that that wasn't such a hot idea either. You see, this late in the banquet evening, it's unlikely that half of you could even stand up, let alone move in some sort of synchronized manner. It would be safer, I thought, simply to do a little modeling and just demonstrate a little health-improving behavior. I thought if I led by example with something somewhat more interesting than just ordinary calisthenics, I could spur you all on to do likewise. So I thought, well, I might try something like this. Here we go. Yeah! No, come on now, come on. Now, you all know perfectly well why I could never do something like that during a banquet speech. Especially without a cappella to accompany me. Can you just imagine what our international colleagues might say if they saw me leaping up and down on the stage in tap shoes? Especially when some of their cultures are so much more formal than our own in the United States. Well, they might say, a waltz we might go for. Possibly a tango. But tap dancing? How American. Really now, where's the decorum? So I gave that idea up as well. Besides, I didn't want the politically correct tapping police chasing after me for tap dancing during a serious speech. But that reminded me that Ann Parkman told me she wanted something with an international flavor. And I wondered what in the world would fill that bill. Well, mathematics is international. But I couldn't see myself standing up here speaking in equations. E equals mc squared, and the square of a hypotenuse to U2. But wait, music is international. I could bathe my talk in international flavor through music. So I decided to sing my banquet speech. Until my wife reminded me in no uncertain terms that I don't sing. But the music idea was too good to give up. I knew that by using the right medium, I could not only inject the required international flavor, I could also pizzazz up my talk with some audiovisual flair. Everybody knows that with a lot of audiovisual gadgetry, nobody will notice the absence of substance. So I rented an expensive, high-tech, humanoid animatronic, as lifelike as I could afford. And I tried to program it to present some classy music, representative of a variety of countries. Let me show you just a dozen of the options I considered using in my attempt to inject the required international flavor.
Sulle labbra, se potessi, dolce un bacio ti darei, dolce un bacio ti darei. Seine Jojo die Fang, Jowe Ogunyan, Shenban so gulita de Changpan, Royal Peto, Yulen de Changpan. Shenban so gulita de Changpan, Royal Peto, Yulen de Changpan. In other words, just from waiting around with that plain little band of gold, a person can develop a cold. Achoo!
So lifelike, too. I wonder if I could program it to do Windows. Nah, technology isn't that far advanced. But you've got to admit, you can't hardly get more international than that. But even with all that beautiful music, I decided I couldn't do that during a banquet speech either. You see, even though there were 12 different languages and 12 different countries represented, some whiner from Lower Slobovia would be sure to complain about having been left out. So the search for a topic continued. Ann Parkman said that in addition to an international flavor, she wanted me to lead the congregation into the new century with a serious message. Well, hey, the time for serious messages during the keynote address and during the body of the conference itself. Wouldn't you agree? By now, all the serious messages should have been nailed firmly to rest. Even so, I thought about some of the serious messages I might hose you down with. But only one seemed important enough to mention, even briefly. And that's the issue of globalization. The globalizing issue is going to be with us for many years to come. And it has implications for all of us. Because every one of us is going to have to learn to work and to communicate with people of other environments and other cultures, regardless of where we work from and regardless of where we come from. And that means that danger lurks. Because even if we never leave home, the miracle of modern communication makes it possible for us to offend and mislead more people in 5 minutes than our most obnoxious ancestors could in 5 lifetimes. Have you seen your email lately? Just as one example of the dangers that lurk in the globalizing trend, think about the risky act of offering instructional materials and products to other cultures without first carefully testing them for cultural suitability. Let me offer a couple of examples that underline this danger of going public without such careful testing in the target culture. For example, when Pepsi translated its famous slogan, "Come alive with the Pepsi generation," into Chinese without testing, it was interpreted as, "Pepsi brings your ancestors back from the grave." When Coors translated its slogan, "Turn it loose," into Spanish untested, it was read as, "Suffer from diarrhea." When Frank Perdue's chicken slogan, "It takes a strong man to make a tender chicken," was translated into Spanish, untested, it was interpreted as, "It takes an aroused man to make a chicken affectionate." Think about that. Think about the materials you're sending around the world and wonder what they're laughing at. But Americans aren't the only ones who can blow it big time on the international stage when going to the marketplace without testing. For example, when a Scandinavian vacuum cleaner manufacturer directed its slogan at the American market, here in the United States, a slogan that was translated but untested, it came out, "Nothing sucks like an Electrolux." Well, you can see that a serious message during a banquet speech would be foolish, to say the least. A little desperate by then, I thought I'd steal an idea from Joe Harless. Do you remember when he was president and his banquet speaker never even showed up? Using what he called his presidential prerogative, he walked slowly around the room with his finger poised to select somebody at random to deliver the speech. What a great idea. Boy, I'll tell you, that raised the pucker factor in the room. But I'm not going to have to be that cruel, because just at that moment, brilliance struck, and I knew how to write the perfect banquet speech. It was so good. It was so right for this audience. It was so right for any audience that I decided it needed its own special, perfect introduction. So after casting about for the perfect someone to deliver the perfect introduction, I settled on someone who not only exudes an international flavor, but who himself is an international, famous, and universally loved individual. Please help me welcome him as I escort him to the stage. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Is this a game? No, this is not a game. I will make the rules. No. But it's not a game. But it's an honor to have you here tonight, because it would give my perfect banquet speech real credibility if you would introduce me. I think I am being manipulated. Are you sure this is not a game? No, it's not a game, but an introduction by somebody as famous as yourself would certainly give my talk a lot of class. Oh, all right. I will try to give you a little class. Oh, great. Oh, great. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have talked about many great men in my time, but tonight I talk about Bob Nagar. In the language of economics, this is known as the law of diminishing returns. Hey, our speaker has done so much in so little time that it is hard to exaggerate his accomplishments. But I will do my best. Now hold on. He is an educated man who has earned several degrees. You might say that he has been educated far beyond his intelligence. Now wait just a minute here. He stayed in his hometown until he was 26 years old. He wanted to finish high school, you see. Now, wait just a doggone minute. This is not my idea, but I continue. You should know that there is only one Bob Nagar. I found that out by looking into the telephone directory. This is not what I had in mind. Please do not interrupt. This is my introduction, and I will make the rules. They say there are 25,000 useless words in the English language. You are now about to hear most of them. Wait a minute, I didn't come here to be insulted. No. Where do you usually go? Now cut that out. Look, I thought if I invited you here to introduce me tonight, at least you'd have something nice to say. Oh, all right. uh, 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 this has been a very nice conference. That's not what I mean. So would you just please finish your introduction? Oh, all right, I will do so. Our speaker has been a very, very hard worker, and his many successes came after a great deal of suffering. Now it is your turn. So here he is, ladies and gentlemen, 98 years old and still playing with dolls. That's it. You're through. You're out of here. You're finished. Wait, this is not politically correct. Well, that was certainly not what I had in mind. The nerve of that man. But without a perfect introduction, I don't see how I can do... No, wait a minute. A promise is a promise. I promise to deliver the perfect banquet speech, and that's exactly what I'm going to do right here and now. And here it is. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you, Bob.
Well, Tyagi, because you're such a good sport about all of this, we know you don't have any plaques and things to put on your wall. We wanted to show our appreciation, and we want to give you this. Thanks for being such a good sport. Am I not leaving?
You're leaving in a minute, but you have to
Okay.
stand here while I talk. And Eileen, come out. That was certainly more than I expected and better than I expected. Thank you both very, very, very much, Bob and Eileen Maker.
Ja, ja, ist der Teufel, ja, ja, das Teufel